Steelers are working to finalize a trade with the Rams for veteran wide receiver Allen Robinson. LA has granted Pittsburgh permission to give Robinson a physical. And Robinson is going to be headed to Pittsburgh.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. A trade has happened in the NFL, and I know what you're thinking. No, it's not Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand what's going on there. I don't understand how Aaron Rodgers is still a member of the Green Bay Packers, but that's the way it is. But it's a pretty significant trade despite that, because it does give us a lot of clarity in regards to what the future of these two teams are. So before we get to the content, we announced another giveaway winner on my Twitter account. All you have to do to enter these giveaways is retweet my giveaway tweet and follow and turn on my notifications. We're doing cash giveaways each and every weekend for my Twitter followers, and I don't have that many Twitter followers in comparison to my vast following on YouTube, which I'm so thankful for. So you have a pretty good chance to win. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Some of the green slips you guys have been sending me is crazy. Like $1,250 off of a $250 slip, or $1,500 off of a $150 power play. We've been making bank off of our basketball picks, bro. March Madness was a huge success, and believe me, we're about to ramp it up for the NBA playoffs. All you have to do is download Prize Picks, use my promo code Mikerophone, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100 instantly. After that, just follow me on Instagram. I post all of my picks onto my Instagram story for free, and we can start making money off of these picks together. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Man, oh man, what a difference a year makes. I mean, last offseason, the LA Rams were coming off of a Super Bowl victory, and there was a question about whether or not Sean McVay and Aaron Donald were going to retire. Eventually, they decided to come back, but there were other issues that they had to deal with over the offseason, primarily the fact that they lost one of their best players in Von Miller to the Buffalo Bills because, well, they couldn't afford to retain him. But they made other moves, such as trading Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans. They lost Odell Beckham Jr. as well, but he was out for the past year due to an ACL injury that he sustained in the Super Bowl. So there was definitely some work to do if the LA Rams wanted to contend for the Super Bowl once again. And they did make significant moves, I will admit. One of the moves they made was signing Bobby Wagner, a man that has terrorized their division for the past decade or almost a decade, after the Seattle Seahawks decided to cut him. And to be honest, Bobby Wagner had a remarkable season for the LA Rams, but unfortunately for the LA Rams, it seemed like the wheels fell off the wagon before the season truly ever started. And I'd be lying if I said this is something that I expected. I mean, yes, they lost OBJ, they lost Von Miller, they did lose another significant member of their coaching staff in Kevin O'Connell, as he became the Minnesota Vikings brand new head coach. They lost Andrew Whitworth, but regardless, this was a team that was expected to compete consistently, and they opened the season with a 31-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills. In that game, there was something that was memed mercilessly: the fact that Allen Robinson, their brand new wide receiver acquisition in the offseason, wasn't really targeted very much. There were jokes about it. I don't really want to repeat those jokes here, but I'm sure some of you guys remember the jokes that were made in regards to Matthew Stafford and Allen Robinson as a result of Robinson not really being targeted. And for the entire season, it seemed like this was a gigantic theme. Allen Robinson was always perceived to be a very good wide receiver stuck on a team that suffered from poor quarterback play. And it's kind of comical because this past year, Justin Fields broke out, and the one problem he had is he didn't really have a deep wide receiver core to throw the football to, so much so that the Bears made a horrible trade for Chase Claypool in the middle of the season. But I digress. This past year was definitely a huge step back for Allen Robinson. His best game being in Week 6 versus the Carolina Panthers, when he had 5 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. For the entire season, Allen Robinson only gained 339 yards, receiving 3 touchdowns and 33 receptions. He was one of the biggest fantasy football busts that you could ever imagine. But his season was also cut short, unfortunately. This was just a really bad season for the Los Angeles Rams from an injury injury perspective. I mean, in the middle of November, you saw Cooper Kupp go down with an injury. 2 weeks later, when Allen Robinson was really supposed to shine with Cooper Kupp out, Allen Robinson was placed on injured reserve. I mean, going into the season as well, there were questions about whether or not Matthew Stafford was going to be able to play quarterback because there was an issue with his elbow, and he only played in 9 games, and in those 9 games, he won 3 of them and he lost 6 of them. Eventually, they would shut down Aaron Donald, and to be honest, there wasn't much to play for after that. There were some cute stories, like the Rams did bring in Baker Mayfield at a specific point in relief for Matthew Stafford, and to be honest, they may have saved Baker Mayfield's career if you think about it. Now there are questions about this entire LA Rams team. What is their future going to look like? Are they headed for a rebuild? Because this is not the same picks Rams that traded multiple first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey, traded Jared Goff and multiple first-round picks for Matthew Stafford, and were extremely aggressive to get their Lombardi to begin with. No, this is a team that is definitely going through a trough, a team that has to pay back for their over-aggression over the past couple of years, and we saw that earlier in the offseason when they decided to cut ties with Bobby Wagner, despite Bobby Wagner having a remarkable season. Bobby Wagner went back to the Seattle Seahawks, who turned out to be doing better than the Los Angeles Rams were. And then on top of that, they decided to trade Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins for a 3rd-round pick and a tight end by the name of Hunter Long. All of these moves are indicative of a team that is trending towards a rebuild and is trying to hoard assets for the next era, which is pretty interesting considering the fact that Aaron Donald and Sean McVay decided to stay. And it seems like they're continuing this because we have breaking news on a huge trade. According to Adam Schefter, the Pittsburgh Steelers are bringing in Rams wide receiver Allen Robinson for a physical, and if he passes, a trade to Pittsburgh is expected to happen per sources. Honestly, this isn't that big of a surprise, considering how Allen Robinson wasn't much of a factor, considering the fact that the LA Rams aren't expected to compete at this point, and the fact that Allen Robinson is already due $15 million guaranteed this season. The Rams already paid $5 million of it. It is expected that the Steelers will pay a portion of the remaining $10 million to Robinson if this trade goes through. Then I don't really blame the LA Rams for pursuing this. They're clearly punting on this season. Typically, when a team trades all of its players that are getting paid a significant amount of money and they have to take on the dead money for this upcoming season, meaning they can't go out and immediately pursue free agents or other players to fill the roster that is devoid of talent, it means that they're not in for this season, but they might be all in for next season. If you remember last year, the Chicago Bears made some moves that were very uncomfortable for some Bears fans. For instance, trading Khalil Mack, for instance. In the middle of the season, they traded Roquan Smith. All of these moves, while at least the first 2, were in order to get them significant cap space for this offseason, and it seemed to work out for them remarkably. They are loaded with assets from cap space to draft picks, primarily because of their trade of the #1 overall pick, and they're in good position to potentially put a contender around Justin Fields. So you might be wondering what the trade compensation is for Allen Robinson. Well, Allen Robinson officially passed his physical, and it looks like it's going to be the LA Rams sending Allen Robinson and a 2023 7th-round pick, which is number 251, to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 2023 7th-round pick, which is number 234. Now, like we stated before, Pittsburgh picks up $5 million of Robinson's 2023 compensation, with LA picking up the other $10.25 million, which isn't really the biggest deal because LA is technically tanking the season. You don't have to be a genius to figure that one out, but it does conclude in this being one of the worst investments that the Rams made over the past year. Because at the end of the day, the Rams essentially paid Allen Robinson $25.75 million in cash for 1 season, 33 receptions, 339 yards, and 3 TDs. That's a lot of threes, by the way. So I don't necessarily think this is something that I'd hold against the Rams, because I always will give props to a team that is making decisions that make sense. In this particular instance, they brought in Allen Robinson to begin with because of the trade of Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans, and they initially did that because Robert Woods sustained a tremendous injury in his final season with the LA Rams to begin with. Charlotte. So it all made a lot of sense to bring in Allen Robinson to begin with. It made a lot of sense to move on from Allen Robinson. Now they did their absolute best to run it back with the core that they had last year. But unfortunately, from the very beginning, injuries affected the entire season, from Matthew Stafford's elbow to Cooper Kupp getting injured to Allen Robinson being injured. And I understand even when Matthew Stafford was healthy, they didn't really perform that well. But honestly, this is the best that you could really do when you're a team that had no draft picks last year. So I think Les Snead did a remarkable job here, and I think he's doing a remarkable job at least getting something back for Allen Robinson. But this is essentially a donation to another team, eating the cap and hoping that you have significant cap space for next offseason so you could pursue high-end free agents. And guess what? The Rams actually have draft picks this offseason and next offseason. Now, from the Steelers' perspective, this also makes a lot of sense. They traded Chase Claypool this past year for a second-round pick, which was a brilliant move, by the way. I mean, that second-round pick is very valuable because the Chicago Bears ended up being the worst team in the NFL, and the Chicago Bears are probably kicking themselves for making that trade, but it was one bad move in a year of pretty damn good moves, I have to admit. But this is just so they could fortify their wide receiver core a little bit more to see what they have in Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett already had George Pickens. George Pickens didn't necessarily have an opportunity to shine as much as he should have because he was kind of buried in that wide receiver room with Deontay Johnson when he was healthy and Chase Claypool when he was on the team. Now he has a full offseason to work with George Pickens and Allen Robinson, and maybe this change of scenery and this new quarterback is what Allen Robinson will need in order to finally play up to the standard that he holds himself to. So at the end of the day, I give the Pittsburgh Steelers an A+ for conducting this trade. The Rams, I give an A. It's a kind of a different A. I always give a lot of respect to a team that understands that, hey, we need to blow this thing up. Right now, they're going to suck. Next offseason, they're going to be good. It makes a lot of sense for both sides to do this. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this trade. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.